Thanks so much for tuning in to Speak Up with Laurel Libby. Today I'm here with Amy Sussman. Amy is the aunt to Max Hathaway, one of the victims in the Lewiston shooting several years ago. And Amy has been fiercely digging to the bottom of the misuse of funds that were contributed to go towards victims and their families from that shooting. Amy is a wife and mother, longtime Mainer, and we're so glad you could join us here today, Amy. First of all, can you tell us a little bit about Max, about your nephew?
Yeah, thank you. First, thank you for having me here. Max was 35 years old when he was killed. He was married, dad of two, and his wife was 7.5 months pregnant. He, on that day, had received his diploma from University of Southern Maine, and they went out to dinner at Shemengi's to celebrate getting that diploma. His wife and daughter just had one child with him that day, and they left soon before the shooting started. Not long before the shooting started, his wife and daughter left, thankfully, by the grace of God, honestly, because where they were positioned, we would have probably lost all of them. Wow.
What, in the news reports, we hear these broad strokes and, hear that Max had gotten his diploma that day. What was his diploma in? What was his degree in?
Business.
Yeah. And what was he going to do with that degree?
They were having the third child.
Yes.
So after that child would have been born, he would have stayed home another 6 months with her. And then I understand he would have gone to work. I'm not exactly sure where, if he had lined that up yet. That was the plan. And his wife was working. And so before the shooting, his wife was the breadwinner and he was staying home with the kids so that he could finish his degree also.
That's amazing. I think it's sometimes easy in talking about this topic, what we're about to just dive into, and that is talking about the misuse of funds that were raised for the victims and their families from the Lewiston shooting. I think sometimes it's easy to kind of gloss over and forget about the very human element and the folks who suffered in that tragedy and continue to suffer today. I think you're up here in Maine visiting. You don't currently live in Maine, but you're back in Maine visiting. And as I understand it, you've been visiting with some of the other victims who survived the shooting.
Yeah, I just had lunch with one today who was shot multiple times, and he's looking at another surgery. And I asked, how many surgeries have you had? And he said, I don't really know.
Wow.
I was in a coma for I think he was probably the most injured survivor. Yep. He doesn't even know how many surgeries he had, and he's facing another one.
2.5 years later, still facing surgeries.
And there's another guy who they may do another surgery on another guy.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So, we'll get to the finances of it all, but this has to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills for just these two that are still dealing with medical effects 2.5 years later.
Yeah, and their hospital bills should be paid. The survivor who got a hospital bill, I don't think that should have happened. And I spoke with this young guy, and I said, I tend to fight a little. So think of me at 5'1", and he's kind of a big guy. Put me on your shoulder, and you let them know this is not a bill you are responsible for. And so there's some medication also that is the trouble right now. It's before the surgery, and I don't know that it will be paid for. So it's ongoing. And I mean, being shot multiple times does not end 2 years after you were shot. That is the point. And that is the long recovery. That, to me, that's what long, broad recovery means.
Well, even someone who's physically recovered, that is not an experience that you ever forget or completely move past, however you heal from it. I remember, of course, I live in Auburn, just across the river. I represent North Auburn and Minot and Augusta. And I remember the huge outpouring of support, just seeing Maine people and folks from outside of Maine saying, what can we do? How can we support the victims and their families? And it was one of those times where party didn't matter so much. Right. And, politics kind of temporarily got pushed aside, and folks were just saying, what can we do? How can we support? And so there was a lot of money raised. There were millions of dollars raised for these victims. And, you know, you think about those medical costs that are going to be coming for the victims. And when did you start to suspect that something had gone awry and that these funds were, in fact, not going where they should after the community rallied like that?
So right after the shooting, my nephew's family, his wife, my sister, his mom, his sisters, all told me, go to this fund. If you have friends, tell them to send to this fund because it will help everyone from the shooting.
And this was Maine Community Foundation.
Yep. The Maine Community Foundation developed the Lewiston Auburn Area Response Fund. And initially, I believe it was 100% for survivors and family members of the shooting. That's what Twitter, that's when I went on the Wayback Machine and looked at their old posts and things that they reposted, even those said 100% of the Lewiston Auburn Area Response Fund was going to survivors and family members. One of the survivors got an email from one of the consultants that said, just want you to be aware, 100% of this Lewiston Auburn Area Response Fund is for the survivors and family members. I couldn't have been more clear to any of us. So that's
So to the survivors and the families, as well as to the donors, the people who were contributing to this fund. Is that fair to say, or was that not communicated?
So I believe, and I'm not quite sure because I wasn't on the website ever. Initially, I think it was just survivors and family members, but soon after, they developed this, they changed the website perhaps. I shouldn't say that. I know the website there were three options when you went to the website. One was for survivors and family members. The other was for nonprofits. And then, or you could give 50-50. So you had three options when you went to the website. The trouble is that none of the survivors and family members knew that.
Yeah.
Well, it was in the media at times, I guess, but apparently none of them were watching the news. None of them saw that. And that isn't really a way to notify them that money
Sure.
is being raised because of what happened to them for
Yes.
nonprofits.
Yes. But you still would expect that any funds being raised for any nonprofits would be for the benefit of survivors and family members. I mean, that seems like a reasonable assumption to make, that it would have to be directly linked
Right.
to helping victims and survivors.
And when any storm happens or natural disaster or shooting, you would expect if you give to nonprofits, it would help the survivors and family
Right.
members. Absolutely. They called it, I think it changed names a little bit.
Yeah.
Then it became the Broad Area Recovery Effort, which I don't know really what that means. Like, it's so inexact that you could see, it could, I think Broad Area Recovery, what's happening 2 years later with these people? That's what my mind would think, but it could also be considered what's happening in the community. And that's what they meant, I guess. So I didn't know any part of it until July. So the shooting was in October.
Yeah.
In July, a friend of mine handed me a publication put out by the Maine Community Foundation called Maine Ties, and it was their spring 2024 edition. And in that, I saw it laid out for me that $6.6 million was raised. There were 5,241 donors. There were 162 individual beneficiaries and 29 nonprofit beneficiaries.
Wow.
I read that, closed it, put it next to the sofa on the table, and did not look at it for a month. And I thought, I know something's there, but we had spent that amount of time. Really was all thought about Max and his family.
Of course.
His wife had the third child in December. In February, his oldest child, who he shared with an ex-partner, was moved away. And we've lost contact with her.
Yeah.
She just turned 14 last month. Every now and then, my sister will get some pictures, but she cannot call her granddaughter.
Wow.
We cannot call her. We can.
Wow.
So that was heavy. That was really hard.
Yes, of course.
In May, we had a service for him. And then in July, we planted a tree in my yard. Friends of mine had gifted me a tree. And so on July 4th, we made that kind of a family event. And there's no cemetery, there's no burial for Max, but that's kind of a memorial to him.
Yeah.
So in July, I thought, I don't think I can do it.
So at the same time, you're getting this mailing
Yeah.
from,
Well, someone handed it to me.
okay, somebody gave you this, which was printed, which was, intentionally announcing this information.
Right there. Yeah.
You have it right here with you today.
Yeah.
The same time that you guys are doing a memorial for Max, and struggling with the repercussions of all of this, getting this information that these funds are not going where you thought that they were going.
Yeah.
And is that what started, you said a month later you picked this back up, is that what started your, investigation into this and research?
I called the Maine Community Foundation, had a half-hour discussion with their communications and marketing director at the time. It was just a fact-finding mission. I didn't really know much about it. And then he told me, look, he answered what he could or would, and he said, I'm going to elevate this issue, and I will give your information to somebody else. You will hear back from someone soon.
Didn't hear back from someone.
Well,
or did you?
I apparently got an email 6 weeks later.
Okay.
But I did not either see it or recognize it. I don't
Sure.
remember getting one. But when I try to reach someone, I do more than send one email from an email address they may not know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have no idea where that email was coming from. So I don't really consider that. I don't think you should check the box that you reached out to a person if that's how you did it. But then I got the list of nonprofits. A couple of weeks later, I thought, I guess they're not going to call. So let me just look into it. And I got the list of nonprofits, and then I started calling them one by one. And the first one had been permanently closed. They had received
Permanently
the money,
closed. So they had received funds within the last year, thousands of
months.
dollars,
$65,000.
$65,000, 6 months prior, and then closed by the time you
That's
called
what.
them.
Yep. I think they might be open now. I don't know. It's
Okay.
a little hard to know
Well,
with some of these.
And so, I mean, that must have perked your ears up even further.
Yeah, I thought, oh boy. And so I called as many, I think I called as many as I could. Some had a website, like one had a website that was compromised, and I was going to wreck my computer trying to find that. So many of them, probably 9, are for immigrants only. One is for a prison advocacy. One is a theater group for prisoners.
Prison advocacy. I don't know how you even begin to relate that to the shooting victims and their families.
It's better. The same person, I believe he runs both of them, or at least he's high up in both of them. The other one is a theater group for ex-cons. These are both run or operated, or someone high up, by a person who killed a person with a gun.
Oh my goodness.
Served time. Received double the amount.
I
so
literally don't even have any words for this, Amy.
Received over $130,000 for his 2 nonprofits, while some of the widows did not receive that much.
Well, okay, did not receive that much. And backing up, 162 individuals. And if you do the math, if they all receive the same amount, that's about
did not.
29,000. They did not receive the same amount.
No.
Okay. So some received more, some received less, depending on, I assume, circumstances and
Well, there were 3 groupings.
okay.
So there
Tell
were
us about
18.
that.
There were 18 people who were killed.
Yes.
So that group split about $3.2 million. Then the group of people who were injured, shot but survived, there's an amount of money that they each received, and it depended on the severity of their injury and how long they were in the hospital. And then the last group, so for that group, I know a couple of them. One received $30,000, another received $32,000. So they were shot, survived it. I know pretty well. She received $32,000. The last group,
Did that cover her hospital bills in entirety?
her hospital bills should have been covered. The money for your medical should not have come out of the money from the MCF. That should not have happened. She ended up with a bill, which should not have happened.
Yeah, so explain that a little bit, because I've heard that from multiple victims that they received a bill that then was not covered by anything, whether it was the fund or otherwise.
And they've had struggles to try and explain to people, the billers, that I should not be getting this bill. And instead they continue to get notices that they owe this money, and then, we're going to send it to collections, which is terrifying for someone who's a conscientious person and doesn't want that. So
Yeah.
the last group were the people who were there but were not shot. So some people call them witnesses. I've said all along, there was a person in a room trying to kill them.
Yes.
That is more than witnessing an accident from across
Yes.
the street that was not threatening your life. So in my opinion, they survived their attempted murder.
Yes.
They received $7,000 from the fund.
Oh, wow.
And each nonprofit received
$65,000.
$522.
65,000 for nonprofits that had nothing to do with the shooting, did not help the victims or the survivors, the family members, any of the above. Got $65,000. And the people who were in the room fighting to avoid being murdered received $7,000.
And of that group, some got out through a kitchen.
Yeah.
Some laid on the floor pretending to be dead, hearing people next to them dying, hearing the noise of people being shot, knowing if they moved, they would be killed. Some hid in a closet. Some and some stayed wanting to help those who were shot at risk of their own peril. That group. That is trauma for a lifetime.
It is. It is. I know some of the folks who were there. It is trauma for a lifetime. And there's no amount of money that can make up for what happened to folks. But the injustice and the secondary trauma of having this, abuse of where these funds went is absolutely not right.
I mean, I called to continue the list. I called the YWCA. I keep picking on them, but I can't help it. This is what they told me. The executive director told me that she used the funds to put up a wall in the entrance of the building. And
For construction.
and they
Go
put in
on.
some cameras. And I grew up in a YMCA.
Yeah.
I grew up a swimmer. And I swam at that YWCA when I was a kid. And I was counting on that one.
Yeah.
Because I know the services that a YWCA can provide. Child kids can provide babysitting, daycare, swimming lessons, time in a gym, respite for a parent with young family when a father has gone. And they did none of that. They checked off the box on their wish list that they certainly had before the shooting, because she told me we'd been wanting to do that work for a long time.
Wow.
Really disheartening. I do have to say, Community Concepts started the Resiliency Center. So you would think, okay. The Resiliency Center is serving the survivors and family members.
Well, great. So what you're saying, Amy, is that there is one nonprofit out of 29 who used those funds, the $65,000 that they received, to help the victims and their families, which is literally what that money should have been used for in its entirety. So 1 out of 29.
Well, also, I did not call the nonprofit for the hearing impaired and deaf community.
So maybe 2 out of 29.
And there were 3 or 4 that provide counseling.
Okay.
So I called them and said, as a family member of a person who was killed in the shooting, would I receive counseling at a reduced rate or free? And none of them said yes.
Wow.
And I thought, what did you do? What's the money for then? And one gentleman said, I think they're using it to open a new office.
So literally, it's like the wish list checklist.
Yep.
Like
what it became.
whatever improvements we've been trying to do, that's what we're going to do with this money that we have been granted by the Lewiston shooting fund.
It was not required for them to be helping the survivors and family members.
So there was no accountability built into this whatsoever.
Right.
Folks could use it for whatever they wanted.
There were 36 nonprofits that applied. 7 were denied. 6 of them were not in Lewiston or Auburn.
Did they have reasons for why they denied those 7?
Yep. 6 were not in Lewiston or
Okay.
Auburn, and 1 did not complete their application.
So if they literally checked the box that they were in Lewiston or Auburn and completed the application, then they got funds. So if
It would seem
if
so.
100 orgs had said, yes, we're in Lewiston, Auburn, and they completed the application completely, then they would get funds.
Yeah, the way the Maine Community Foundation stated it in a statement to a reporter that asked, let me get it right. The nonprofits had to be in Lewiston or Auburn and could provide services for people with psychological trauma. I think I may be paraphrasing that.
And could,
But could is absolutely correct.
but didn't have to.
Not required. So I thought to
Not
myself,
required.
yeah, I could offer coffee in my house every other Tuesday, charge
Sure.
you for it, fill out that application. They'd probably give me $65,000
Probably seems like a missed opportunity.
as long as I'm
Amy.
in Lewiston and Auburn. Yeah,
Gosh.
it's so disheartening.
So tell me, you're discovering all of this, and I want to right now kind of make a distinction. At a later point, the Attorney General did weigh in. Maine's Attorney General did weigh in, and basically said there's nothing to see here, meaning there's nothing overtly illegal with what happened, and that may be true. Maybe there was nothing illegal in this process, but I would say that unethical, immoral is different from illegal. And it seems to me that we definitely crossed into that line of unethical and immoral, regardless of what the Attorney General, this administration, says about it. And I do have to say, I think that lack of accountability and lack of transparency is a culture that's set at the top. And certainly the Mills administration and the AG's office does not set a standard of transparency and accountability. What did you find as you dug in more and were trying to expose this?
So one significant thing, there were 2 steering committees for that one fund. One was for the survivor and family part of the fund, and the other was for nonprofits. There were 10 members on that steering committee, and 6 of them received money for their own nonprofits.
So there's the real unethical, immoral part.
Right.
Part of
Where
it.
is that ever appropriate?
It's never appropriate.
So the Maine Community Foundation says that the Attorney General signed off on that. They're good with it.
Wow.
And the only reason I filed a complaint with the Attorney General only because I was in an article in the Portland Press Herald, and I was the only one complaining. The Attorney General said, I haven't gotten a complaint from anyone. And I thought, wouldn't the reporter have connected the dots there and said to me, maybe you should file a complaint? So I thought, well, let me file a complaint so they can't say that anymore. But I didn't think that it would be illegal because I wouldn't think that the Maine Community Foundation would do that in an illegal way. I think they were vague enough in allowing people to give to nonprofits. There was no specified, they weren't told what they would be doing with the money. The nonprofits were not listed. It wasn't required that they help survivors and family members.
But have you heard from donors at any point in this process where, I mean, I would, in that circumstance, contributing money, whether it was to individuals or nonprofit, assume that my dollars are going to help victims one way or another. And sure, maybe you want to direct your funds to a nonprofit, thinking that that's going to do some good, right? In the wake of this tragedy, that there are nonprofits that could do good and help the victims, the survivors, their families in some real and tangible way. I would not think that any donors, and correct me if I'm wrong, have reached out to you and said, my gosh, I can't believe you're digging into this. I'm fine with my dollars going wherever.
But no one said that.
No one has said that. Of course not.
But also, I've only had one person say to me, I gave to that part of the fund. One. So and she said, I'm sorry, I didn't know. She asked if I was angry at her. I'm like, of course not. Thank you for giving anything.
Of course.
I got curious. How did $1.9 million get into that nonprofit part of the fund? They were very, very large donors. And they certainly didn't go on the website and choose victim and family member or nonprofits. They sent a check.
Sure.
So I, tried calling the Boston Bruins. Try
Wow.
calling LL Bean and getting someone to talk to, or BIW. I mean, I got some people to talk to me, but no one would go that far with me to get the answer to that question. But one did. One who gave over $100,000. I asked, first of all, thank you. And which part of the fund can I ask did it go to? And the response I got from this company was, well, we weren't given an option to designate. The Maine Community Foundation told us they would split our money.
Wow.
And I thought, that's all I need to know.
So, I mean, you can probably assume precedent there that that was the same told to all of these
Why wouldn't it be?
other large donors. Their money split, or is it visible? Is there any transparency as far as how much of that donation went to? So if they were told split,
They just
was
said
their money
split.
truly split? Did it simply go? There's no knowing.
It could have been split 90% to
Sure.
nonprofits, 10%.
Sure.
I don't know.
And what was their intent? Like, what was their heart behind the gift when they made it? Did they share that with you?
I asked if you could have chosen, what would you have chosen? And what's interesting is I then got back language directly from the MCF's website. And I thought, okay, then your corporate office probably told you,
Yeah.
be careful
Yeah.
when you do this.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't rattle off the words from the MCF's website
No.
right now, and I don't know how many times I've read it. but
Yeah.
certainly more than they did.
Sure.
And I couldn't also think that in a room of people, 1 in every 3.5 people would choose nonprofits over a person who was shot or a family member of someone who was murdered in a shooting like that.
Right. How were you finally able to bring attention to this?
So I went to media immediately because I knew that the survivors and family members didn't know. And I did not want to be the one to tell them, by the way, all this money was raised on the back of 18 people who were killed,
Yeah.
on the backs of 13 people who were shot, and everybody else who was in the room. That's re-victimizing to them.
Sure.
I did not want to be the person to tell them that.
Yeah.
So I went to the media, and the first reporter I spoke to said, well, it's just you. How do I know? I said, well, it's not my opinion. You want more
Well,
people.
do your job.
I said, I'm not a reporter. That's why I'm
You're
talking
not a
to
reporter, but they are, and they could dig into it and find out and verify if what you're saying is true.
Right.
And did they do that?
you. That's not how it works.
They did not do that.
They still have not done a report about this.
Wow.
That newspaper. I had there was a reporter at News Center, Maine, Raya Wooten, and honestly, she went to bat. I think she went to bat for me and for the survivors and family members. She got 2 reports that I thought were very well done. I really appreciated her. She's now no longer working for them. She's out of state.
Okay.
Other than
Maine's
that,
loss.
yes, truly. Other than that, had a very difficult time getting anyone to really truthfully tell this story.
And at what point, this is then, you discovered this in July, you started digging into it. Where are we time-wise here?
So the second report that News Center Maine did was about January of 2025.
So 4 months.
Yeah.
No. So you're saying more than a year, obviously. We had come around to July, the year passed in October, and then this is the following January. So almost a year and a half later.
No, it was within 6 months.
It was within 6 months. Okay.
So yeah. And then I started reaching out to elected leaders, and I thought this really should be something that they're paying attention to and addressing. And so I sent a letter to the Lewiston City Council right before a meeting that they had.
And you would think, the shooting was in Lewiston. That would be of interest.
Yeah,
these are their constituents right there.
in their city.
It is, Amy, I will remind folks, it is the government that is closest to us that impacts our daily lives the most. And that starts at the city council.
So I sent the letter the morning of their meeting. There were 2 people that did public comment that night. One was the former president of the city council, was the president during the shooting. I got some responses from the letter. The mayor called me 6 days after the letter, forgot how I was related to the shooting. And I thought maybe you should reread the letter
Before you call.
before you call me.
Yes.
But he said we talked 40 minutes or so. He said he would reach out to the Maine Community Foundation and call me back. It's been a year.
You haven't gotten a call back yet?
He never called back. The city council president replied to my email saying he was saddened to hear of my nephew's death. That was tragically ironic that he was killed on the day he received his diploma, that he was going to investigate. I know he investigated me. He looked me up twice on LinkedIn,
Wow.
which I forgot I even had one, and that's gone.
So much due diligence going on here.
Yeah. Yep. And at the next city council meeting, he announced, the city council president announced, I've looked at these nonprofits. They're all good nonprofits. There's nothing to look at here. We're moving on to more important business.
So they literally never addressed it.
No. I'm not even sure they spoke with each other about it.
Wow. Nothing to see here. That was the stance.
That's exactly it.
From Lewiston. So
I thought, okay, there's that. I went to
check that off the list.
I went to I went to senators, I went to representatives. I had already reached out to Governor Mills. I started that back in, I think, September.
And did you ever hear anything back from the Mills administration?
The first 4 emails I sent, you get the
You're
email.
persistent.
Well,
thank goodness you are.
That's one way of saying it. The first 4 emails I got, you get the thank you for contacting the.
Sure.
I got those, but then nothing.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Senator Collins' office and said, how help me? And she said, I'm going to knock on the door and tell him to. So then I started communicating with a staffer of the governor's. I never spoke with the governor. 14 times I reached out to that office.
Wow.
And I never, ever spoke with her.
Wow.
My questions were, who brought in the Maine Community Foundation? And what were the parameters around that work? This was 28% going to nonprofits. Is that acceptable? Would 50% going to nonprofits have been acceptable? And if it were 70%, would that be all right with you? They would not answer that question.
And at what level is it acceptable that all of this funding going to nonprofits is literally going to nonprofits that had nothing to do? I mean, I just keep coming back to that because you have to assume that these donors thought that their funds were going to help the victims one way or another, whether it was individually or the nonprofits. And at every turn, it was not.
Right. It wasn't until last August when I reached out to Governor LePage, former Governor LePage, and he and his daughter called me the next day, who was a rock star, Lauren. Yes, Lauren.
Yep.
That I learned the day after the shooting, former Governor LePage called our current Governor Mills and said, look, let's you and I raise funds. I'm the Republican, you're the Democrat. Let's do this together for the survivors and family members only.
Wow.
And she said, no, I'm getting the Maine Community Foundation to do that.
Wow.
She was offered to partner with him.
So we could have had a collaborative, bipartisan effort, but instead the Maine Community Foundation was brought in intentionally, and now we have a third of the funds that should have gone to the victims misused, given to nonprofits that had nothing to do with the Lewiston shooting whatsoever.
And I was at the end of my rope by the time I spoke with him. I don't know what else to do. And their pledge and promise to me was that they would shine a light on this. And at that moment, everything changed. They got me to Steve Robinson and Maine Wire, and they have taken this, and they care so much about me and the survivors and family members and this issue and this state. And I truly, I think timing is everything. And while I'm impatient, I'm also a person of faith, and I have to just rely on, that publication sat on my table for a month, but it kept bugging me. I need to trust the timing a little more than I do, but it all changed then. Prior to that, I had reached out to the Maine Community Foundation's new COO, new Chief Operating Officer, because I thought, I don't know what else to do. Maybe let's sit down and have a conversation. She's a woman, two women sitting having coffee, and I want to talk to her about this is what it felt like, or this is what it feels like from this side of the table. We exchanged emails for 2 months trying to arrange this meeting. First, she wanted me to go to the MCF and have another person have like the chair of the steering committee in the meeting. I thought, no, not doing that. Then she wanted to have the communications and marketing director there, and I declined that as well. We finally got to the point where we were going to meet in a neutral place, just the two of us.
Yeah.
But I had emailed back and forth enough that I wasn't even sure it was worth doing. She had said repeatedly, we spent hundreds of hours with survivors and family members. And I said, well, then why didn't you guys tell them you were raising funds for nonprofits?
Yeah.
If you spent all that time with them, why didn't you tell them that? And she would never answer that by email. So I said to a survivor who I've become friends with, I don't know if I'm going to take that meeting. I don't know that it's going to be worth it. She said, no, do it. I want to go with you.
Wow.
So I emailed the COO back and said, oh, a survivor would like to attend the meeting. I realize that changes it. Maybe she'll bring a person or two, and we'll go to the MCF. You can have whomever you want in the meeting. She canceled the meeting.
Wow. At every turn, no transparency, no accountability whatsoever. I mean, frankly, it sounds like they were running scared from you at that point.
I am not an important person. And I've said that over. My husband keeps saying, yes, you are. Well, I'm not. I'm not an elected leader. I'm an aunt of a guy who was killed.
You know what? I think that is such an understatement, Amy. And I think that it illustrates, I feel so strongly on this, Maine people, Maine citizens are so much more powerful than they understand. And you are not just an aunt. And your husband is absolutely right. You are so much. But it's not that you're just an aunt. You're an aunt. And you are the person who is responsible for digging into this and uncovering what was going on and bringing transparency and accountability. And if you, just an aunt, can do that, who else can, and what can we accomplish?
Well, that's what I was saying to the city council. I said that, I'm not an elected, I'm not an important person. You have a position. You could, and I said this 2 nights ago at their city council meeting when I came back around and stood in front of them at public comment and said, I am not an elected leader, you are. These are your constituents. And someone you were taken advantage of to raise money for nonprofits. If I can use my voice to speak up for them, why aren't you?
And thank goodness that people like you do speak up, because there are elected leaders in positions of power, from city council to state government, to the governor's mansion in Maine, who are abdicating their responsibility to speak up for those who can't. And when those who are in positions of power refuse to speak up for those that they should be, it is so critical that the citizens stand in the gap and speak up. And so I'm very thankful that you're standing in the gap, not just for Max and his family, but for all the other victims whose voices would have been completely sidelined if not for your persistence.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it is not just for Max's family. I've become friends with a lot of the people that I've met through this, through the shooting.
Yeah. You know, I think some of this, of course, your due diligence is why this has come to light, but I think there's been some extra attention highlighting what is going on because of what has been uncovered about Gateway.
Sure.
And so can you talk about that a little bit, that piece of it, where we're hearing about waste, fraud, and abuse, emphasis on the fraud, and what's been going on with Medicaid, with MaineCare, and Gateway, who received funds. 2 different entities, 2 different gateways, same person who is in charge of both.
Right. Same person founded them.
Yes.
And my understanding is that the LLC, it has an office, and within it.
So we have Gateway LLC, Gateway nonprofit,
Right.
founded by the same person. And that nonprofit, so you have the LLC that has been known to be misusing taxpayer dollars via MaineCare, and then the nonprofit, which received funds, $65,000.
Yes. And the nonprofit was also represented on the steering committee.
So that's one of the entities. What was it, 6 out of the 10 represented on the steering committee that received funds.
But I would also give the deaf community, the person representing the deaf community, a pass.
Well, the deaf community was impacted extremely significantly in the shooting, and I'm sorry you haven't been able to make contact, but that one seems to me like it probably is reasonable. Yeah. And I hope that those funds are being used to help the victims and their families.
But about Gateway.
Absolutely.
I was listening to Steve Robinson on his Mainwire TV. One time he said, you think the state might have said ixnay on the 8-way gay
Yeah. Hint, hint.
Yeah, like, I mean, that
Maybe
should ring
not
bells
allocate
for
it
you.
there.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
would they be
Well, this has
placed
been known
on
since what, 2018? I mean, this
fraud? Yeah.
the fraud with Gateway has been known for years now. 4 years. And yet they sit on the committee. Governor Mills gave oversight to Maine Community Foundation. And here we have an individual whose LLC is known to be
Defrauding the state.
defrauding the state.
Yep.
And yet you're going to give that individual oversight over these funds that are intended for victims.
And when I handed Steve Robinson the book he saw that name, and I think, all the alarms went off in his head. Timing is everything.
Yeah. My assumption was, prior to talking to you and diving in further, was that this is a culture that comes from the top, this lack of transparency and accountability. But it's not just the pattern that's laid out. It's handing this over to, in part, an individual who's known to be defrauding Maine state government. In defrauding Maine state government, that means defrauding Maine taxpayers. And that is unconscionable.
The last email I got from the governor's staffer said this. I thought I was going to be speaking to the governor. That's what the staffer had told me the Sunday before, Tuesday at 2:00, I think it was. At 12:30, I got this email that I would not be speaking with the governor, that she would like me to continue to refer people with needs to their office because I had told them about a survivor whose disability wasn't covering the mortgage even.
Wow.
And so I think the staffer maybe found some resources for that survivor. But I thought, I don't work for the state of Maine. I'm not your conduit to this group of people. You should be paying attention to them. You should know them. And by the way, you ignored me for my first 4 emails. So how could I ever say to another, oh yeah, reach out to the governor's office.
Do it 5 times. Reach out 5 times.
Yeah. Make sure you do it the
Because
5th
that's the
time.
magic number to actually get them to pay attention.
The other thing the staffer said was that the governor doesn't have jurisdiction over the Maine Community Foundation. You brought them in.
They brought them in.
And
If
you
the
don't
governor
have
brought them in,
jurisdiction.
I think that you're responsible.
Yeah, not according to the governor.
Well, I think it seems to be a lot of picking and choosing.
Yeah. Now we have some fairly good news.
I'd love to hear some good news.
One of the nonprofits is giving the funds. Okay, I have to say it correctly. They use the funds they received for the intended purpose that they put on their application. They, from their reserves, are giving that amount of money to the survivors and family members.
Directly.
They're doing it I don't know for sure. I think they're working it out still. I don't think they can directly give them checks.
Sure.
I don't believe this nonprofit can do that, but I think there are ways for them to provide that.
They're doing their due diligence, and they are giving the funds back and giving it to the people who should have had it in the first place.
So
Good for them. So 1 out of 29 or out of 27 that are, probably not legitimately entitled to it.
Right.
1.
Yeah. So far.
Well, that is good news.
Yeah. Try it.
Have you heard from any others that have indicated that they'd even be considering giving the funds back?
No.
Nothing. What do you think? What did it for this one? Have you heard anything from them to indicate why they're now at this point? Is it the public pressure? Now that there's a critical mass of folks who know that these funds did not go where they should have, what has pushed them over the edge to give the money back?
So I do not think it's that. I do not think, because I think that's kind of the flap now. Oh,
Sure.
They saw their name on the list and
Yeah.
they want to make, they don't want to be that. So I don't believe it's that. I don't believe they understood or knew. They were offered the funds. They were contacted. Hey, you can apply for this.
Yeah.
You will qualify.
Who wouldn't?
Apparently. They didn't know how much money they would receive. They also didn't know what the survivors and family members would receive. So because it got out in the media, I think they realized whoa, this is wrong. And they're doing it for the right reasons. I can't tell you now why. If I tell you why they are not making themselves public, then you'll probably figure out who they are. And it's not
Sure.
fair for me to do that. But I do believe they are going to come out pretty soon. I think they want to make sure they do this in a good way. They're doing it for the right reasons. It is not because, people are not going to feel good about us now. That is not, that's not the reason. I'm really grateful that they're at this point for them and for the survivors and family members. And the biggest message I've said is that the survivors and family members, because of the disparity in the amount of money that they receive compared to the nonprofits, it would seem that they're not very important. That these nonprofits are twice as important as someone who was shot. That these nonprofits are almost 10 times as important as a person who laid on the floor pretending to be dead, or someone who waited and helped someone who was shot, or someone who ran for their life and got out of the building. They are not. By the amount of money, it would seem that they're not very important. And that is re-victimizing to them. There is a history of re-victimization after these shootings. You
have the first tragedy, the shooting, and then you have the second tragedy where the folks who were victims are pushed aside and
that $1.9 million
re-traumatized.
Went to nonprofits instead of the people who are suffering and need it most. So there's a victim advocacy group called Victims First, and their motto is 100% in, 100% out for the survivors and family members only. They have a history on their website of 25 years of this behavior by nonprofits. It happens all the time.
That this is a normal, there's a shooting, there's a crisis of some sort. The funds flood in, right? People want to support the victims, whether it's here in Lewiston or across the country, whatever the crisis may be. People want to support. They want to help people. And so the money floods in, and this is a typical pattern. You're saying this is a repeated pattern where then other folks take advantage. Don't let a good crisis go to waste. Take advantage of that. And those funds are then misused.
Yeah, the fire aid.
You would think we would learn from that over time. And then when a crisis occurs like this, we could learn from the mistakes of others and ensure that these funds do go to the folks that they should.
Well, now we know fire aid raised $100 million for the California fires. None of it went to anyone who lost a home.
Of course not.
Not a dime. The Baltimore, I always use this example because I live in Maryland, a resident of Maryland from Maine. The Key Bridge in Baltimore collapsed almost 2 years ago. When a container ship slammed into it. There were 8 people, 6 died, 2 survived. Not a penny of the $16 million that was raised from that went to them. Not one penny.
So we're doing theoretically pretty good here in Maine that some went to the victims, because it's the usual pattern that none would go.
I don't think that's a usual pattern.
I would hope
Those
not.
are pretty horrible examples.
Those are terrible.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But the notion is, and for me, I don't think any nonprofits should receive any funds, because for me, if something happens to another person, I don't have the right, the ability, or the responsibility to tell them what they need. It's not, how do I know?
Right.
Maybe they need counseling. Maybe they need it later. Maybe they need home modification. Maybe they have other bills that maybe they're out of work and they, who knows? It's not I don't have the right to do that. I don't have the right to, maybe they need counseling, but maybe they already have counseling from someone, or maybe they don't like the counseling office that the money's going to. The money should go to the people affected.
Well, the more you disperse to an organization versus an individual, the less far those funds can go, right? And if you give it directly to the people who were the victims in the first place, then, as you're saying, they can determine where that money should be best spent
and it
to make the most effect.
It also gives them their dignity back. They don't walk in now as I get free counseling because, remember, I'm a victim. No, they have the funds to pay for it, and they can just be who they are. There is, at the end of the city council meeting Tuesday night, one of the city councilors pledged to do her best to get to the bottom of this, to reach out to these other nonprofits and encourage them to give the money back.
Wow.
She means business. And I know there's another counselor who will join her in that.
Good.
So there is movement.
There's movement at the local level then to push for some accountability on this.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, it's a really good thing.
I'm sorry it has taken so long to get there, but thank you for your efforts to make sure that we did. And I am sure you'll be staying on top of them to make sure that they follow through on that.
Yeah, I hope to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Amy. How can folks help now? How can folks help in the future? How can we encourage an atmosphere and an actuality of transparency and accountability? What would you say to folks?
Well, let's make the assumption that this nonprofit will be giving their funds to a victim advocacy group. That is an opportunity to give to that victim advocacy group, because that fund would be just for the survivors and family members of this shooting. Alternatively, look at your nonprofits before you give. Make sure, I'm very careful now.
Make sure you know exactly where your dollars are going to and that it's for the use you intended.
Give it to the people who need it most. That happened to them. Those nonprofits didn't get shot. People got shot, and they get lost in this. Nobody's talking about them because we're all upset about them, and we should be, but they feel like they were used, and they were. And they deserve every bit of kindness we can give to them. They deserve respect and not to be treated like this. Nobody deserves to be re-victimized by the people who come in to help them. And I always think of this analogy. I always hate to say this because then I'm going to drive home, but if I'm in an accident and someone runs up, I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you. And then they think, but I'm also going to help that person over there and that person over there. I'm probably going to help them more, but I'm not going to tell you that. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
We know the survivors and family members may have a hard time trusting police or Army reservists. Those people could have and should have done better. But I believe in my heart, had they known this was going to happen, they would have. They would have stopped him if they knew. Who would have thought this would happen? But this happened from the group of people that came in and said, we're the good guys.
Yeah.
We're going to help you. You can trust us. And that is the most disheartening thing for me to think about, because who do they trust now?
Right.
That's really hard.
It is hard. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for bringing this to light. And, it could not have been an easy thing to do. It must have been incredibly painful as family member, the aunt of Max, who was killed in the shooting. But without you, they would not have had a voice and had someone holding folks accountable. So thank you for doing the work and sticking with it and telling folks about it today and all the times, you've done a lot of interviews recently.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that could not be easy.
This is not my wheelhouse at all. In fact, I like to make sure I match the wall color. If I could wear whatever color you have. The other night,
Blend right in.
The other night at the city council meeting, there were several people who spoke at public comment. And after the meeting, we all met and took a picture. Do you smile in a picture? Someone on social media, why are these people smiling? So I commented and said, I can tell you why I'm smiling. I'm smiling because I'm not standing alone. That I did this for a long time by myself, and I'm not having to do that anymore. Now the victims, survivors, and family members know that people care about them. I thought, if you want to see me cry, then you should have been in the chamber when I listened to the other people talk about how much they care about this topic and how much they want an investigation done by that city council. Or you want to see me shake, you could watch me give my public comment at that meeting. And if you want to see me cry, you could spend a day with me, because every day I shed tears about this. So I took a moment to smile because I have help now. And that feels tremendous.
Thank you very much, Amy Sussman.